Despite the title of the stream, today will be not only a packaging tutorial, but also a story about contribution to few open source and free software projects. I'm Andrew Tropin, and today we are writing patches and contributing to free and open source projects. The story begins when I tried to stream on my new setup. As maybe a few of you already know, I recently switched from nix-os to guix and from i3 to sway wayland compositor, and it's not possible to just open OBS and get your stream work. And for demonstrating purpose, I will try to do it right now. And for that, I will create a temporary environment which contains OBS. As you can see, I don't have it installed. I will do something like that, which will spawn a bash with proper environment variables, which will point to the directory which contains OBS. And now I can start OBS because I already streaming and have another instance on another desktop. It will say something about that, but as you can see, it started. But the problem that I can't capture windows using this tool, because I have only OBS windows which run in X Wayland, but all other Wayland windows won't be visible here. And also, I hope it won't affect the things that you see during the stream, because it's probably use the same config as my OBS instance which actually streams. As you can see here, there is no other options for capturing windows, and capturing the screen also doesn't work. And we need to solve this problem somehow. I will clear those things. And easy search shows that there is a plugin called wlrobs, which allows to stream your desktop on wlroot based compositors. And I will just find the repository and we'll take a brief look at it. And to build it, it mentions a few dependencies and pretty easy steps to build the actual plugin. But I decided it won't be any interesting to just use this plugin, but it would be cool to package this plugin and use it from my package manager. And also later I will be able to contribute it back to Guix repository, and the community will benefit from it. And I decided to write a package for it. Writing a package not very hard task, but sometimes it can be tricky. And we will be writing a package definition, and later we will see what issues you can face. And I decided it will be more interesting to see the real example rather than some imaginary one. And for the demonstration purpose, I will create a namespace inside RDE directory. It's a repository which contains my configuration files and some utilities that I currently work on. And in RDE directory, I will create a TMP file. I already created it. It's empty, as you can see here. And inside this directory, I will need to define my package. But before defining a package, I will need to include some models. And I will take a look at already defined namespace and we'll copy it and we'll just update necessary things. It will be a little faster than typing it all the way down. And as you can see, it already contains some use models definitions, which basically says that take this namespace and make all exported or public variables available inside this namespace. And as you can see, there are cmake and git download namespaces, which we won't need actually, because we have Mercurial repository, as you can see here, HG, and it also uses Meson build system. Okay, doesn't look too hard yet, but let's define something. Define public, let's call the variable which will contain the definition of our package obs dash wlrobs. Yeah, thank you, Gleb. We will be using the same naming convention as Emacs packages have, and basically it's obs at the beginning and the name of plugin itself at the end. Okay, we defined a variable, but now we need to define the content of this variable. It will be a package which will contain something inside it. Oops. But writing all the stuff by ourselves from our memory is pretty hard task. We can just take a look at already defined packages, which can be found in the guix repository. And to get the guix repository, we will need to issue a simple command which will clone the guix repository, and you will be able to explore it yourself. I already did and issued this command and already have a copy of guix repository locally, and I will just open it. I have it in work directory, in directory called guix, and it's pretty big. It contains a lot of files, but let's take a look at GNU directory, which contains packages directory, and we can find a lot of different files here. But what we really need, we need a file called video.scm. .go files is actually a compiled version of scm files, and scm is basically a scheme file which contains definition of a lot of packages, and here we can find obs package itself. It looks pretty big, but in reality it's pretty simple package. But our package will be much more simple than obs package itself, and we obviously need a name for the package, which is self-explanatory field. Here we define a package, how it called, package record, and we define some fields for it, and we need a version. Version, oh, I can't spell it. Version, we will take a look at our browser one more time, and we'll see which versions are available for our usage, and we see that there is a 1.0 version, and we will be using it. 1.0, cool. Now we need to specify a source. Source is the place where we will take source code for this package. Let's copy it and we will modify it somehow suitable for our needs. Instead of git fetch, it will be hg fetch, I hope. To understand what actual variable we need, we can take a look at guix hg download namespace, but we can go inside it and because of that we will run a geyser. We will compile this namespace. It compiled without errors because there is nothing in this namespace except requiring some namespaces, and we used alt and dot to go to the namespace which contains hg related functions, and we can see here there is a hg-fetch function which we can use, and it contains some parameters which we will define. Okay, method hg-fetch. Instead of git reference, we will be using hg reference, and instead of this URL, we will use the URL to this repository. Okay, and instead of commit, it would be something similar, but a different name for commit. Probably change set. Yeah, it's probably a change set. Change set. And instead of version, because we specify here version 1.0, we will use function string append, which will add a prefix to the version, like that. And file name, we will be using a function called getFileName, which will take name and version and will create a file name for us. We can use exactly the same function here. And we will specify a hash. A hash required to be sure that we downloaded exactly the same package which contains exactly the same files as original package packaged by a developer. Okay. And now let's try to evaluate our definition. It's not finished and it will throw some errors to us, but hope we will get something interesting from it. Oops. Okay, we have to evaluate it. We will be using guix build and package name obs wlrobs, but it won't work because it will say that it's an unknown package, and it's kind of expected because we not specified where to look for those packages. And here I will specify the path to my RDE directory, which will contain the definition of this package. And now it will take some time to evaluate. It will throw some warnings. And okay, now it says obs wlrobs unknown package. And previous error was that the missing field initializers for build system, synopsis, description, license, and homepage. Those fields are required, and we will need to set them anyway. That's why let's start doing it. Synopsis. Let's write something not very meaningful, and description is also not so cool as it can be. Homepage HTTPS. Okay, and build system. Build system. Instead of actually every package will need the source code of the package, some inputs, the packages it depends on, and a build system which will get all this stuff compiled or somehow combined and converted to binaries that we will be using, or maybe some other artifacts. And for build system, we need meson build system, which should be defined in Guix build systems meson, I think. And as you can see, I typed alt and dot and went to the namespace where the build system defined. And I will go back. Almost every field which is necessary already defined except license. And let's define license. And I don't remember what license I used for this package. Let's just take a look at the repository copying MD file. It's GNU-GPL, GNU-GPL version 3. Okay, GPL 3. And as you can see here at the bottom, it shows that there is an object license GPL3, and we can go to the file containing this object and see all available licenses. And now we can evaluate our package definition one more time and try to build it. Okay, source expression file to match any pattern. We need to do something with source expression. It contains some error. What we can do? I have a very easy solution for that. Here I already wrote a package definition for it, and I can just take a look, and it seems pretty similar, but a little less. Okay, it was too much parentheses here. I not configured development environment, and it's a little unhelpful sometimes. Okay. Now it looks that we balanced all the parentheses as it necessary. And it still throws an error to us, and it wants git download namespace. And it's required for the git file name function. Okay, it seems that it started something, but it failed with a very expected error. It compared a hash specified inside base 32 field, but it doesn't match the actual source it downloaded. And it's good because the original hash was taken from OBS, and now we're building a very different package. And we need to take an actual hash and insert somewhere here. Also, you can use guix download subcommand and specify the URL, and it will download the package and will provide you a hash which will be calculated from the resulting source it will download. And now our definition of the package looks pretty good. And we can see that it started building, but failed. And it failed on somewhere on configuration phase, and it complains about pkg config, and we didn't provide any dependencies for this package yet. How to figure out those dependencies is an interesting question. You can just take a look, for example, to readme file, or to try to run the build and see what is missing, and
maybe some other interesting ways, for example, looking at source code and so on. What we need libobs, we need libwayland, pkg config, and Maven. Maven we will get automatically by Maven build system, but those three dependencies we need to specify. And there are additional dependencies in case you build OBS differently, but we won't be doing it today. We will just take a look what I already explored and which dependencies are required. And here you can see that we have native inputs, and inside native inputs we have uh, pkg config, which is a cool demonstration of different type of inputs. There are three different type of inputs in guix-patches. It's native inputs, it's just inputs, and propagated inputs. The difference is following. For native inputs, the package will be available only during build time. That means if you obtain this package as a binary built on some substitution server and you obtain only binary, it won't download native inputs because they are used only during compile time, and pkg config used only during the build time to explore the path to the necessary libraries. That is why it should be a native input and it not needed during runtime. Difference between inputs and propagated inputs is following. Inputs will be installed in your system, but it won't be provided in your profile. Profile is a folder which contains the union of all installed packages, which should be available to you. Skybro, I have been wondering, he's writing some comment and I will just read it. I have been wondering why so many distros mess around with flatpaks, snaps and alike when both Guix and Nix offer much more elegant solution to the problem without the downsides. It's a good comment, and it's a really interesting question why people don't use Guix and Nix for those capabilities, because it really seems that the solution provided by Guix and Nix is much more elegant. And I don't have an answer to that question, but it's how it is. But a very nice comment. Okay. Inputs require at runtime and not installed in user profile. Propagated inputs will be available not only on your hard drive somewhere in the GNU store, but also will be available inside your profile. For example, if for that package I will type htop inside propagated inputs, I will be able to call this htop command if this package will be installed. It's something like I want to be with this bro available to the user which uses me, and yep, that's all about the difference between those two things. And let's continue with our dependencies. First of all, we need OBS for libobs to build the plugin. All OBS plugins requires it to be available, I suppose, at least. We need this library for something. I figured out it during experimentation. Actually, we can skip it for now, and we'll see what will happen. And Wayland protocols are required for the plugin to be built. Okay, let's try to build it one more time.
now it complains about free desktop missing. We need GNU packages free desktop. Yep, look fine. Good. Package config. Package config. Now it builds and it fails and it says that it requires package x11 required by libobs. Okay, okay, we can do it like that, but probably uh, it should be a dependency of OBS itself, but I'm not sure about that. Okay, about variable, because we forget one more use model xorg. Finally, it should be built. Yes. And it says the path to GNU store where the result will be available, and we can go to it and we will see that there is only a lib, and inside this lib we will see OBS plugins. Inside this OBS plugins we will see only one file called wlrobs.so, which is dynamically linkable linked library which can be loaded by OBS. The question by KHWPP. Do you feel limited with the amount of packages Guix offers? What's your approach if you don't find the software you need? Very nice and very good question. Before switching to Guix, I watched at repositories and looked for the packages I use. And with the time, the amount of available packages grew, and I reduced the amount of the packages I use. And now I am at the point where there are a lot of packages in Guix for my needs, and I reduced the usage of other packages, and I am pretty comfortable here. And in case I don't have required packages, I package them myself. But there was there were few cases, only a few cases. First of all, I packaged Emacs with GTK support to run Emacs on scaled Wayland session without blurring. And the second case, I packaging a plugin for OBS to be able to stream. And everything else is okay. I mean, I don't miss any of the packages, at least yet, and probably won't miss in the future. But it may be not the case for you if you use something that is hard to package inside Guix, for example, KDE environment, desktop environment, not packaged because of some probably bootstrapping problems or something like that, or maybe by any other reasons, I don't know exactly, and you won't be able to use it in nearest future, and maybe some other packages won't be available for you too. Yep, I think that's a very extensive answer to the question. Okay, go back to our packaged plugin. Mm. It's good. It provides us with a library, and now we need somehow to say OBS to use this library. What we can do? We can do the trick. we can create an environment which contains both OBS and a plugin for OBS, and it can be done like that. Guix environment -l for load path. We need to specify our RD directory, which contains the definition of our new package, and we need to provide packages that we want to be present here. It will be OBS and OBS wlrobs plugin. Boom. Now it did some magic and provided us with the environment. Oh, and inside this environment, we will see the first path inside path variable, which is a path to our profile. And let's see what is available in this profile. Only OBS, ffmpeg, mux. Okay, it's binary directory of our profile. Our profile actually one step above. And here you can see there are few libraries, few directories which contain something. For example, etc should contain nothing useful in terms of OBS. Include maybe contain some OBS related libraries, headers, and lib will contain all the libraries for OBS and OBS plugins directory, which will contain our plugin. And it contains not only our plugins, but also all the plugins provided by OBS. And now, if we will do the same but without using OBS wlrobs, and we will go to the profile directory, we won't see our plugin so file inside lib folder. One more time, echo pass cd this directory, cd lib OBS plugins, and now we don't see our wlrobs library here. That is because we doesn't specify it inside profile. But even when we specify it to be inside our environment, OBS will launch but won't see this library. As you can see, there are no new sources right here, which should appear when this plugin is available. What we can do about that? The simple solution is to just copy our library to the special path where OBS will be looking for it. Let's try this approach. Echo path. Hope you already get the idea how profile is created. It just takes all the packages listed for this environment, for this exact profile, and symlink to the directories, and union all those packages inside one directory called profile, and that's basically it. Okay, inside lib OBS plugins, we will see lib wlrobs, and we will just copy this file to .config OBS studio plugins. Let's copy it to this folder for a second, and let's take a look at installation instruction. It says to place this library inside this path, and let's do it. We already placed inside plugins, but we also need to create this structure: config OBS Studio plugins. Now we mkdir this one, and mv op. And now when we launch our OBS, it will work as expected. It shows my Wayland session, my Wayland desktop, and it also contains new entry in this menu, which allows to add more Wayland outputs, which is good, but not so good as we want, because we had manually copied the plugin to our home folder, and it's not very cool. I think we can escape this manual work, and we'll do it automatically. And how to do it automatically is a good question, which I asked myself. But I will explain. OBS. Let's take a look at OBS source code for a second. OBS Studio. Good. OBS contains a file called obs-nix.c. This file, and inside this file you can see the definition. I already have a source code of OBS because I already explored how it loads plugin, and exploring the code showed that it uses OBS install prefix, and it tries to find a plugin inside OBS installation dir. But when we creating a profile with a plugin, it's a union of few directories, but it's a different directory from OBS install directory, and that is why OBS can't find a plugin even when they are present in a resulting profile in the same directory as other OBS built-in plugins. And to fix that, we need to update a file, another file in OBS, which loads plugins. And what we want to specify the directory with OBS plugins using environment variable. And for that, we can take a look at UI directory, and here main something or basic something, basic main cpp looks like the good directory. And here we will place a little code, a little snippet of code, which is that code, which says take environment variable OBS plugins and OBS plugins data path, and if they are both set by someone, let's add to the later variable slash model suffix, and call OBS add model path, call this function to load actual models. And this snippet of code do what we want, and now we can specify the path for OBS plugins using environment variables. Okay, but how to take those changes inside our OBS package in our package manager? We can do the trick. I already have a definition of OBS next package, which just inherit everything from OBS package, and it just changes the name and change the source to local file. And here I specify recursive because it's actually not a file but a directory which contains the whole repository with OBS Studio source code. It will work for use case when you package it only for yourself and just testing if it works. But later you need to clean up. And by clean up, I mean to contribute back those changes as patches or as or contribute it to upstream or contribute it to package manager. I don't want to contribute those changes to package manager as a separate patch because it will require to maintain this patch. That is why I decided to contribute them to OBS. And to do that, I had a OBS Studio repository. And inside this repository, I created a branch called plugin passes from environment variables. And I had few commits here. And after that, a pull request button appeared. Probably I failed. Oh no. And I created a pull request. Actually, there is a new one. I already have. There is how new pull request will look. You will need to specify all those information, like description of the changes, motivation and context, how it test, and so on. Is it break changes or something else? And also you need to set all the checks in this checklist, or almost all the checks. And after that you create a pull request, and the after of the project will review it, will write some comments or merge it, or maybe will wait for your updates and will merge it later. A question by Dr. Sensor. I wish Guix infrastructure have same latency as Nix. I live in Southeast Asia and Guix pool takes forever. I wonder if other people has similar issues. Yes, I think other people has similar issues. For some reason, I don't have such issues. I live somewhere in Russia, and it works pretty fast for me. But I heard about such complaints even from people from my region, and I'm not sure what caused it. Yeah, maybe you can ask in Guix IRC channel on Freenode, and people will tell you what you can do to make it faster. For me, it works pretty fine, and I didn't see any performance issues comparing to Nix. I think pretty the same. Okay, we was creating a pull request. We just described everything that we need, checked all the necessary items, and pushed a create pull request. I already did it few days ago, and here should be my pull request somewhere here. Yep. And I described the changes, the how it tested, the context, and so on. Also, I created a few more commits because there was some issues with my code. But after that, the maintainer rebased my branch and squashed all commits into one and pushed it back to master. And now my comment inside the master, and it won't take even a few days to finish all the process. And now the only thing that we can wait for is for new tag on the master branch which will contain my commit. Or we can take the exact commit of the hash of exact commit and just update OBS package to use a hash of commit instead of git tag. And I think that we can do it actually. Files, changes. Okay. Somehow, I need to find the commit. Not very intuitive interface. Probably this one. Yep. Let's go to OBS Studio project and just take a look at all those commits inside master branch, and we'll pick one. Actually, I can do it from my Emacs and it probably will be faster. But okay. It should work too. 11 days. This commit. Okay. We found the commit, and this is a commit from master branch. And now what we will do, instead of using our local fork of OBS, we will update OBS package itself. And here all the actions that was done on our local repository with our definitions of packages. But now we can go back to Guix repository and to contribute those changes back. And another item in OBS package definition, which is different from original one, is native search passes. What native search passes do, they set environment variables to pass relative to your profile. And what does it mean? For example, I had environment with OBS and OBS wlrobs, and let's activate it one more time. And if we write export, which will show all available environment variables, and we'll do grep OBS, it won't show anything. But if you will use my modified version of OBS here, which called OBS next, and will issue the same command, it should show two new environment variables set to those directories which is relative to the profile. Yep, and as you can see, two variables appeared, and they point to the path of our profile and to directory with OBS plugins and OBS plugins data as localizations and some other stuff, which is cool and which is what we really need. And now I can type OBS and it will work, which is wonderful. And one more time, if I use the basic OBS, which is not patched yet, and will type OBS, it doesn't work. Okay, sounds good. Now we need to contribute those changes back to our OBS definition inside Guix repository. For that, we will go to Guix repository, we'll find video scm file, and here inside OBS definition we will first of all add those environment variables using native search passes. Okay, the number of parentheses is good enough. Now we need to update a version, and to do it, instead of commit, we will use a revision. Commit, probably somewhere in the manual we can find an example. Yep, this is what I'm looking for. Actually, you can find it not only in manual but also in source code. For example, here, if I type revision, you will see the same construction. Oops. And we will do like that. Instead of this commit, we will be using the commit which contains our changes. And it will be a first revision. And also we will need to update the version field to something like this, but it will be oops, to 26.1.2 revision commit. It will automatically generate a proper version, and here instead of version we will be using a commit. And now we need to just add one more parenthesis. Oops. And align the source code. Good. What we will also need to do is to update a hash of a resulting file, because the source code will be different, and hash also will be different. And here inside a definition of OBS package, we can find a few more interesting things that you will need during packaging of some software for gigs. It's arguments, which is arguments to build system. And here we're using CMake build system, and configure flux is a flux which will be passed to CMake invocation command, which will generate make and make files and other stuff. And here also phases, which is a function which will return standard phases, but with a phase added after install phase, which says to wrap executable and set some environment variables for this executable. And if we take a look at OBS and cut the content, we will see that it's not a real file. It's just a wrapper which contains some environment variables at the beginning, and calls a real binary, OBS real, with those arguments, and also with all those environment variables set to correct values. Good. Actually, more information about phases you can find, and configuration flags you can find in manual or on blog on Geeks site, which has a packaging tutorial which probably explains it in more details. But okay, what we've done right now, we set environment variables. Oh, okay. I'm just scrolling too much. We set the native search passes, and it will make available for OBS those variables with proper values for them. We updated the revision, which we will use for our OBS source code. And here I specified exact commit and its first revision, which not connected to a tag. And the version will look like this version, revision, and probably a few first digits of commit hash. Okay, now we need to somehow evaluate this package definition. But let's first take a look at our div and how it looks. Okay, this div contains changes from a little different work. I will remove them to have the difference only related to OBS itself. Discard region. We removed changes related to OBS wlrobs, which I used for testing previously before the stream. And now we have only changes related to our OBS package. And they looks okay for me. Now we need to evaluate if it works. To do that, I will go to the work gigs directory, and here I will use pre-inst.env file, which will set necessary environment variables, and will use my local copy of gigs for all following commands. I will do gigs build OBS. Yep. And we'll see if it works. It should fail because I didn't update a hash, and it should be different. Yep, and it's different, and I will update it right now. Hope. And it seems building. I'm sure that it works because I already tested this commit, and while it builds, I will explain how to make a patch and how to send this patch to the gigs mailing list, guix-patches mailing list. Here we see those changes, and what we can do, we can create a commit, and those commit should be in the same style as all other commits and have the same message. Let's look for update. For example, this one. It will be very slow because I was streaming and compiling the C++ source code. Okay, the message will look like that. I will just copy it. There are some snippets to make it easier to write some commit messages. OBS to Let's take few digits here, like this. And yeah, I see that there is a warning that YouTube doesn't get enough video to maintain a smooth streaming. I hope you can still see me and hear me. We on the last step of contributing. We updating GNU OBS, update OBS to blah blah blah. OBS update. Nice. And I would like to explain more here. Add support for this version of OBS for OBS plugins pass environment variables which are required to be able to load plugins which are present in profile. Seems okay. And now we can make a commit. And now what we need to create a patch for people who are not familiar with Magit. On the left you can see the commands which do the actions I do with Magit, and we need to call format patches, create patches, and as you can see, new file appeared, and basically the command for doing it is git format patch, but I provide a link. Oh, it's built, it's good. Guix environment ad hoc OBS. Now it should run much faster because it's already built and cached locally. I just need to check that environment variables are set and OBS launches, and it launches. Because I don't provide any plugins, it shows a black window, but we are fine with that. Okay, with format patch I created a patch. The more extensive tutorial you can find on the link. I will place the link to this document in the description, and you will be able to find it yourself. It loads pretty slowly. It explains a lot of small but important details, how to name packages, how to set versions, and what we've done here is very similar to that section of the tutorial. And later you will find submitting patches section, which says that you need to create a patch using format patch comment, but I can't find it here. Okay, we can just type it format patch. It just right here. Sorry. At the beginning of the section, you will find the necessary comment. Okay, we already created a patch using format patch command. Now we just need to send it to the guix-patches mailing list. But before doing it, we need to run a lint command to be sure that our package doesn't violate any rules which is defined in the lint utility. It checks all the fields that they contains correct values, that for example description separates sentences by 2 spaces, it doesn't start synopsis doesn't start with a article and so on. Okay, we have a patch. We can open it and look through it and see that everything is good. Great. And now what we can do, we can type 2, which says the name of the, or actually no, we will do using a different approach. We will create a new mail buffer which contains the similar fields, and we'll copy the subject. I still think about the approach I would like to take. Okay, I take the original patch file, add a line which contains text follows this line here. It's actually the value of message separator it's a value of the variable which used to separate message headers from message body. And now I will change from div mode to message mode, and now I will remove this line, and you will see it highlights those mail headers, and everything after this line will be a message body. And now I just need to send it to someone, to guix-patches. Good. We have prepared a mail for sending, which contains the patch. We can add a little more description here. For example, I can reference issues Andrew Tropin. It will make it possible for following packages to work. Ouch. Misclick. Packages to work. Good. Now I'm pretty good with this patch. It contains all necessary information. It passes the linter checks, and yep, seems pretty well formed. now we need just send it. It will ask for my pin of my hardware token and the email sent. Now I just update this page. I don't actually know what those patches are for and why am I mentioned here. Okay, it should appear somewhere here soon. Probably it won't appear instantly, but it's already sent, and hope it will be discussed and merged soon. I didn't show all my notes during the whole process, which is probably make you a little uncomfortable without seeing the structure of the talk, but there was a structure in this talk. To sum up everything that was done today, it's not so hard to contribute to free software, and I would like you to join this interesting process, especially if you need it for yourself. It will help not only for you, it also be helpful for the community and other people. And yep, I think uh, that's all for today. Thank you that you joined and hope you enjoyed it.